So today, we're diving into something that really pushes the boundaries of what we think we know about consciousness, memory, and, well, reality itself. It all kicks off with a seemingly impossible image and the incredible story of a person named Wesley. Okay, take a good look at this image. This is not a photograph. It's not a recording. This face, which looks so incredibly real and full of life, actually emerged from the pure random chaos of television static. So, how in the world is something like this even possible? Let's get into it. All right, so what are we really looking at here? Because this isn't just some random ghostly image you might see for a split second. No, it's something way more structured and, believe it or not, persistent. I want you to imagine you're staring at an old TV screen, just pure, flickering white noise. And then, out of that total chaos, little patterns start to organize themselves. They merge, they connect, and slowly but surely, a face begins to take shape. And it's not just a flat picture, right? It's described as having real depth, an expression, a genuine presence. But here's where it gets really wild. The image isn't static. Forgive the pun. Witnesses have reported that the face of Wesley seems to change, shifting between a young man, an adolescent, and even a young child. This isn't one snapshot in time. It's more like a living, breathing presence.
All right, so let's recap. We've got a face that shows up out of nowhere in random noise, and it even changes age. The big question, the one you're probably asking right now, is how? That one question is what takes us from just observing this strange phenomenon to trying to understand it.
The explanation for this, well, it takes us into some pretty mind-bending territory. It's a blend of physics and consciousness, described as a kind of dialogue, made of light. So there's actually a name for this field of study, Instrumental Transcommunication, or ITC for short. Basically, it's all about using everyday electronics, things that create random noise like old TVs and radios, as a potential bridge for communication with consciousness that isn't, physically here. So the theory goes something like this. This whole thing kicks off when a coherent vibration, think of it as a focused thought or intention, interacts with that random electronic noise. This connection supposedly synchronizes the particles of light, the photons, and gets them to arrange themselves into a specific image. It's like the light itself gets a temporary memory and is told how to recall a form.
And this next quote from Keith Valls just nails it. It's not the light remembering. It's consciousness teaching the light how to remember. In other words, the light is just the canvas. The theory says consciousness is the artist, the one that organizes all that random energy and teaches it, for a moment, how to create a masterpiece.
Okay, so that explains a single image, maybe. But what about the different ages? How does that work? Well, that's where the idea gets even bigger, expanding into what's called a multidimensional memory field.
This might sound familiar because it pops up in a couple of different ways across history. In spiritual traditions, you have the Akashic Record, this idea of a cosmic library that holds a record of every single thing that's ever happened. And in science, you have a kind of analogy, a quantum database, where every possible state of existence coexists as a different frequency you can tune into. Two different languages, describing the same mind-blowing idea.
So how does this field supposedly work? Well, first off, you have to forget about linear time. It doesn't apply here. Each image that appears is like a window of remembrance, a little peek into a specific moment. The version of Wesley that shows up, the child or the adult, is said to be the one that's most in sync, vibrationally speaking, with that exact moment of connection.
Okay, let's just go with this for a second. Let's say this universal record of consciousness is real. If it is, the implications for our own existence are, well, absolutely profound. I mean, just think about that for a second. A universe where the delete key doesn't exist. Nothing is ever truly gone or forgotten. Every action, every thought, every secret is permanently imprinted into this field. That suggests a level of accountability that is just staggering. In this model, we're not just living in reality, we're actively building it, moment by moment. Every single thought we have is like a brick in the architecture of our world. Every emotion we feel literally sculpts the frequency of the reality we all share. We are constantly broadcasting ourselves into existence.
And this leads to a total flip of how we normally think about memory. We think we have memories, right? Like they're possessions we carry around. This idea says no, that's backwards. Memories are a vast field that we exist inside of, and in reality, they are what carry us.
And that brings us to the final,
And honestly, the most reality-shattering idea of all. What this means for who you actually are.
What if you aren't just a single point in time, the person you are in this very moment? What if your identity is the entire field of your existence, including every version of yourself you've ever been? In this view, you don't have memories. You are a consciousness that is unfolding as memory.
So think about what that means for when you remember something. You're not just pulling up an old file from a dusty cabinet in your brain. No, according to this theory, you are literally stepping back into that frequency, that moment in the field of your own consciousness, which is still totally alive and present.
I love this quote because it captures the idea perfectly. We tend to think of ourselves as a single star, one point of light. But this perspective suggests we're an entire constellation, a vast interconnected pattern of every moment we've ever lived, all shining at once.
So I'll leave you with this to think about. If our entire past, present, and maybe even future all coexist in this massive field, and if remembering is the act of stepping back into a part of that field, then what part of your own vast constellation are you choosing to step into right now, in this very moment?